Hello and welcome back to I'm a Biker. Hope you're safe. Hope you've been safe during this Corona times and hope you like my new Corona hairstyle. So we are back on the road and finally, after riding it on the track, we now have the BS6 ready Tyres Apache RR 310 on the streets, and let's see how it rides. So guys, hope you saw the first ride review. We rode it at the Chennai track and we took you through all that's new and different on this bike. We'll do a quick summary of that. So new on the 2020 BS6 version is the ride-by-wire throttle with 4 riding modes. You now have the Michelin Road Fire tires coming as standard, and of course you have the new 5-inch display at front, which makes a whole lot of difference. And of course all this switch gear is new, and there are a lot of changes internally and small tweaks that make it better. So in this video, what we'll focus is on how it rides in the real world. Out on the track, it feels really good, and we really loved it on the track. So in the real world, I think it feels a lot refined. That's probably one word that I would use over the previous version. But that said, I have a little bit of problems with it, but I'll take you through that in detail. So out in the real world, first thing that you want is a lot of bottom end torque, especially when you're riding in the city. So what they have done in this bike is that this bike loves to rev, and post 3,500-4,000 RPM, this thing just smoothens out, and it just builds rev so fast, and it's very addictive, and you really always want to be in that range. But below that around 3,000 to 4,000 RPM marker, what happens is that you feel a little bit of lack of power, and that is even if you're in the sport mode or the track mode, etc. So what happens is, in city, to get going quickly, you need to program yourself to get ready to keep the revs above the 2,500-3,000 RPM to get that quick launch. Because if you're hoping to just get away with that bottom end torque, which maybe you are used to in some naked motorcycles, what happens in this is that you need to just get used to that extra bit of rev to get going. It's not bad in any way, but it's something that you get used to, and once you get a hang of that, then this motorcycle just flies. Now when we rode it on the track, one thing that I really praised about the ride-by-wire throttle was its quick on-off transitions. But back on the street, it's a bit of a mix-up here, because now what happens is that quick on-off transition, suddenly when you drop the throttle, there's a huge transition, and maybe for street use, it's not that comfortable. But again, that problem is solved once you keep the revs a little bit high and you're in the right gear. So again, a little bit of getting used to this motorcycle, if you're coming off from some other motorcycle. But I think 2-3 days down, once you get riding it, it feels really good. Now I talked about things that might seem negative, but what TVS has done on this motorcycle is that now they have given the glide through technology. So when you're in the rain and the urban mode, what happens is you have glide through technology activated in any gear. So if you slowly let go of the clutch, it's optimally slowly raises the engine speed and the vehicle speed to a particular level where you don't need to give accelerator at all. So that sort of negates the need for or negates the problem that I was talking to you about. And this glide through technology is not is there only in the first 2 gears, in the track and the sport mode. So coming to the engine itself, how it feels in the city while on your daily use, right? So it is a beautiful engine. TVS has done a lot of touch up to it, in this version, especially thanks to the ride-by-wire throttle. They have identified spots that create more vibe, and they have sorted those issues. So what happens is now, like I told you earlier, once the engine crosses that 3 to 4K RPM mark, the engine just flies. It's so beautiful, you're so addicted to revving it. Out on the highway, we were cruising at about 120, just about the 7,500 mark. In terms of top speed, when we pushed it went all the way to 160, 161 without any issues. So out on the highway, you'd like to cruise between the 100-120 mark, and it still has enough juice to overtake the big truck or big car or something which is annoying you, but it feels much more planted and much more refined at those speeds. So for city usage, one thing or two things that come together is the clutch and the gear shift usage. So it's pretty smooth, feels very good. The clutch is actually quite light, you don't need to put much effort into it, and gear shifts are very precise. So even in lower speeds, you can really shift without any issues, and even if usually it's easier to shift when the RPMs are up. But in this bike, you feel it's very precise, and you exactly know what gear you're in. And thanks to the gear indicator, in case you screw up, you know what's going on as well. Coming to the suspensions, yes, during the track ride I told you it's a mix. It's not too hard, it's not too soft. It's somewhere in the medium range for city use as well. So no changes there, and I think that's primarily kept because even though this is race tuned and race spec, TVS also is portraying this bike as a touring machine, and a lot of people have been touring on the previous generation, and that has been going very well. A lot of people have got a lot of miles on it, and since the ergonomics have not changed in this, and suspensions are also pretty much the same, there is no difference in that. So I think now it's a even much better touring machine. That now that you have the integrated turn-by-turn navigation from the new 5-inch screen which can be connected to your phone, and also since it feels much more refined at higher revs, so once you're on highway cruising speeds, you don't feel any stress or fatigue while riding.
Let's ride as we walk through this land. All we can feel is sand, so we can feel. Lord, will you take our hand? On you we stand. When the water pours out, we go.
Now, due to the BS6 conversion, the good thing is that there is no change in power. TVS has managed to keep the power figures the same during the BS6 conversion. But yes, the weight has gone up by about 4 kilos. But honestly, you really don't feel that anywhere. I mean, even on the track, we never felt it. And even while riding in the city, it hardly makes any difference. And it's very easy and nimble bike. It's easy to change directions, and there is no issues that you ever feel too much weight. So once you sit properly, once you grab the tank with your knees, there's no weight ever coming to your palms. It feels very easy to change directions on even in city speeds, and it's quite easy to ride on the highway as well. It's quite planted on the highways as well. So now new on this 2020 version is the Michelin Road 5 tires. These were absolutely brilliant on the track, and even for road use actually they're quite confidence inspiring. And we have a mixed sort of climate right now, and the monsoon is just coming in, and we had a bit of wet riding, we had a bit of city riding, and we had a bit of cornering riding as well. But it's been a good all-round experience. It feels very planted. Even if you're pushing it, you really don't feel any issues with it, and you never any loss of traction. It feels very planted, even on hard braking, in fact. And coming to braking, we saw a lot of comments on Instagram, people saying that the brakes could have been better. But honestly, since we've been riding it for quite some time now, I don't see any issue at all. The front brakes are spot on, even on hard braking. We mostly rode it in sport mode, not on track mode. The power remains same in sport and track mode, but you have full ABS intervention. So we mostly rode on sport mode, and it feels very good. The front ABS hardly ever kicked in. Yes, the rear kicks in maybe a little bit earlier, but that's common on all bikes actually. The rear railway ABS sort of kicks in early, but since you do most of the braking with your front brake, we didn't have any issues. And that combined with the Michelin Road 5 tires, there was hardly any situation where we ever thought that the brakes were not adequate enough. So TVS has always been really good at the build quality aspect, and with the RR we haven't really found fault in any place. The build quality is pretty good. The levers also feel pretty actually really good quality, and it feels very premium to hold and use. I especially love the new switch gear. The start and the stop button is all integrated into one, so it feels very premium. It feels new. It's not used to something like this, and you can change the modes on this left-hand switch gear, and it's pretty easy to access. Very easy and intuitive. And the good thing is that you can change modes on the go as well, but you need to keep your throttle at 0 position. So if you're cruising, if you want to change the modes, you just need to cut your throttle and then change the modes, the different modes, riding, track, this, that, and all. So but honestly, I would suggest stop the vehicle till you're used to it before doing that. Just safety aspects, so that your concentration is totally on the road, but you can do it on the go as well, so that's not a problem. In the rain mode and the urban mode, what happens is, in terms of power, is that there's a slight reduction in power, but what you really notice is the lack of throttle response due to this reduction in power. I mean, I'm saying lack of throttle response in a positive way, because that's how they have programmed it, so that it's easier to ride in the city and you don't have all the power rushing in, and in terms of in rain you might lose traction if you have all the power rushing in. But does a 34 PS motorcycle need all these riding modes? It depends on what you're used to. If you're coming in from a bigger motorcycle, you would probably say my right hand is all the traction control and power control that is all required. But if you're coming from a smaller motorcycle, yes, you definitely need it. and it makes a difference as well. So I was telling you, in the rain and urban mode, the power is about 25.8 PS, and in the sport and track mode you get the full power. But where things are really different is how the ABS is controlled. So in rain mode you have maximum ABS intervention, so even that's where you have maximum slippage happening as well. In the sport and urban mode you have the normal amount of ABS intervention, and on the track you have least sensitive ABS. For track you don't really need that much ABS intervention. That's where you get your traction control and braking, everything in your hand. But like I said earlier, we haven't had any issues with the braking and ABS. Even we mostly got in sport mode and we didn't have any issues with ABS kicking in early or too late. It was perfect, spot on. So now one big practical concern when it comes to daily use and touring is the mileage. So you get actually really good mileage. The previous version of the RR also used to give good mileage, and we're happy to say, and we're actually quite surprised to find that this also remains the same even with the BS6 conversion and everything. You get actually anywhere between 35 and above with sane riding, which is quite good for a vehicle of this capacity. And even when you really gun it, I think it comes down to maximum about 30, which is still quite acceptable range for a motorcycle in this capacity. So with the new TFT screen, the 5-inch screen up front, you also get smartphone connectivity. So that with that you get a lot of additional features. You can record your ride. What I personally like is the turn-by-turn navigation, so which allows you to not take your phone out every few half an hour, 1 hour to find out where you're going, and don't have to put additional mounts over here, with the GPS, with the phone on it. So what it allows you is it gives you turn-by-turn navigation, and it's quite clear. Map My India, well, not the best, but still it does the job. I think for most of the situations it is fine. And another thing is that you can download a lot of information about how you're riding onto your phone, so you can see what top speeds you'll be doing, the route you've been taking. All these can be seen on your phone, and even on track mode it shows you how you have been riding and where the gear changes occur, etc. So it makes you if you properly analyze it, it has the potential of making you a better rider. So a lot of connectivity features which makes it much more interesting for this day and age. So guys, that's primarily how the RR310, the BS6 RR310 feels like in real life. If you have any questions, do let us know in a comment below. Due to our limited availability of resources due to the corona times, there might be a few shortage in terms of footage and things we're doing. So if you have any specific doubts, do let us know in a comment below and we'll surely get back to you with all the information. Thanks for watching, and do subscribe to our channel. It really would help us, and I'll see you in the next one.